Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And I thought we'd create a couple of snippets. I haven't had any creative time today. Oh, I've had a stressful day. The Ring doorbell didn't work and I was waiting for parcels to be collected. And obviously they rang the Ring doorbell and I didn't hear anything, but didn't realise it wasn't working until it was too late. So I've been running around like a headless chicken trying to drop parcels off. Oh, it's been a nightmare. Anyway, so I thought we'd come and do some snippets because I love the size. Obviously, I love the size. It's one of my favourite sizes. But I thought we'd do a couple of Christmas ones, but something really simple, nice, simple ideas. But I absolutely love looking through these. So I haven't numbered the last two, but they are 97 and 98. And these two are 99 and 100. My 100th snippet, can you believe it? So we've been doing this a while now and it's just wonderful. So I thought we'd do a couple of seasonal ones. So I've got my 4x6 pieces of card and I want to do some really simple ones, nothing too complicated. And I thought we'd use, because they're back in stock, well, I've got a couple left and the other stock is arriving in the morning, so wonderful. These have been really popular. So this is 18 and 22. And I've got stencils that coordinate in SS6 and SS7. So I thought we'd use these. So I'm going to start with TE22. So let's take TE22. Why is that sticking on that side? Nobody knows. There we go. That's it. So we'll take TE22 first. And we're just going to create something really simple. So I'm going to take a small acrylic block and I've got a piece of 4x6 Pink Frog Super Smooth Card 300 GSM, which is what I have online on my shop. So let's take TE22. And the actual size of the bauble is a really good size. It's just lovely. So I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Festive Berries, Lumberjack Plaid, and then I want like a purple. And then I'm going to use, I love my little ink pads, I'm going to use Seedless Preserves. So let's use the Seedless Preserves as well. So let's move these out of the way. And we're just going to do something really, really simple. So I'm going to have my purple first, which is the Seedless Preserves. And then I'm going to ink this up with my Seedless Preserves. Actually, that's going to go all the way around, isn't it? So I've just inked it sort of all the way around the edge with the Seedless Preserves. I'm then going to use my Lumberjack Plaid, and which is I want this side, yes. So I'm actually going to place more of the Seedless Preserves just on that left-hand side as you look at it. Then I'm going to take my Lumberjack Plaid and I'm going to shade. So I've got my shade with the Lumberjack Plaid. No, Tracy, spit it out. I've got my darkest colour with the Seedless Preserves, then the Lumberjack Plaid, and then the Festive Berries. So come in with the Festive Berries. Okay. And then I'm going to use the Seedless Preserves again and just come in a little bit darker. I was going to say then I'm going to grab my blending tool and it's not there. Bear with me. So I want a reddish kind of blending tool. So one of my smaller blending tools, and I'm just going to sort of dab the ink just so it's blended, just so that's blended a little bit. Then I'm just going to come in with a little bit more Festive Berries. So So let's just come in with a little bit more festive berries. And then we're going to just take the blending brush again and just dab that. And then I've already got a mark on my piece of card. Where I've got the mark from, nobody knows. I'm going to add this down here like so. And we're just going for those nice simple designs that you can then take, and if you want to make some simple Christmas cards, you've got the idea in your snippet album, and you can just take that idea and convert it to your simple Christmas cards. Now we've still got ink on there, haven't we? We've still got ink on this one. So what I'm going to do then is just use the second generation ink on here. So I've not spritzed it or anything like that. I'm just using the second generation ink. Okay? How lovely is the second generation as well? So you're then going to clean, because you don't want to leave any oxide on there. So that's your TE22. And then we're going to bring in TE18. So let's grab TE18. And on the TE18, we'll use the little one. Always so many possibilities with stamps. Still a bit of blue on there. Don't know what that is. Must be a blue, some blue ink or other. And what I'm going to do then is, let's grab a little bit of kitchen towel, which I've still got on here. There we go. And I'm going to take the seedless preserves like so, and this time just on the one side. Then I'm going to take the lumberjack plaid, a little bit of lumberjack plaid, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the festive berries. Okay, so I've not filled, let me lift that up. You can see it's still got some open area. I'm then going to lightly spritz that with water. I've just spritzed it with water, and you can see that because it is soaking wet around your stamp. But the good thing is I haven't got to rush. There's time just to clean up our little bit of mess. So I'm then going to stamp with the little round one. And I'm just giving that time just to do its thing. So we've got our first generation, and then we'll add our second generation. So we've got first generation and second generation. And then we'll do exactly the same again. We'll add the seedless preserves. So just on this left-hand side, the seedless, as I'm looking at it, the seedless preserves, then a little bit of lumberjack plaid, which for some reason I can never say, and then some of the candied apple. Then I'm going to spritz lightly with water. It's hilarious because when I spritz with water, I actually miss the stamp, and more of it goes onto the acrylic block, so it is quite funny. So then I'm going to add this one down here and just press that. Now just give it a few seconds just so that the moisture doesn't move too much and it's just absorbed onto that card. So just so that that's absorbed onto that card. Okay, and then I'm going to add the second generation just up here. There we go. So first and second generation, and then I just want one more. So I'm going to take the seedless preserves. So take that seedless preserves. Then a little bit of lumberjack plaid. and then some candied apple. Then I'm going to lightly spritz with water, and again I'm just going to wipe around here, mainly because the only reason I'm doing that is because my hand slips if I've got too much moisture on there. There's no rush though. And then I'm going to add this one here. And if you wanted to, you could have a little tag on one side by using my tag stencil, and you could then use the tag stencil and create a tag at the same time so that it all coordinates. I'm just giving that a few moments. And then what I'm going to do is just wipe that clean. And if I lift this up, you can already see that it looks like it's shaded. Dark, medium, and then a little bit of light. So it already looks quite shaded. However, we can do a little bit more work to that if we wish. So we've got these here that we've both done in two different ways. So we can then take our little brush. I don't want that one, I don't want the smaller one. I think we'll take my smaller one. No, we'll take this one. So let that rest, and we'll come to our first one where we didn't add any water, we just added the ink. So we can take our little bit of water. I've got a round brush, which is my Nick Pro number 5, and I've got a piece of kitchen roll on this on the side so that I don't use too much water. And then I can just add a little bit of water, see how it reacts. And if I'm not getting much movement, I'll pick up a little bit more of that water. But I don't want to sort of do too much. I just want to add enough to see what kind of reaction I get. So you can see I've got a little bit of a reaction, but we can make that a little bit darker if we wish. So we can take a little bit of our seedless preserves. So we take a little bit of that, and I'm not going to use much water. And then I can just bring in the darkest colour, which is that seedless preserves, and just bring in a little bit more of that colour, just to blend that out a little bit. Then I can take a little bit of lumberjack plaid, lovely rich colour, lumberjack plaid. Then I can just add that. Now, nothing too complicated here. You can do this quite simply. And then we'll just take a little bit of candied apple. So a little bit of candied apple, and just blend your candied apple. There we go. Just blending that out. Let's turn. There we go. Let's grab a little bit more water, and there's a little bit more of that seedless preserves there. So we'll just sort of blend that. So nice, simple way of colouring. This was the first generation. So our first generation is obviously going to be a lot darker because it was our first generation stamping. Now, can you see, because I sort of used the edge of the ink pad, the little small ink pad, it also adds like a little bit of a pattern as well to the bauble. So it's lovely. So you can keep it like that if you wish, so that you've got the two little baubles, or like me, you can add a little bit more colour so that it has more depth. So a little tiny bit of water, pick up that seedless preserves, and let's just make this even richer in colour. That seedless preserves gives you the wonderful shade and real dark colour. Then we've got that lumberjack plaid where we can blend into it with the lumberjack plaid. Again, because a round brush holds quite a bit of water, I don't really need much water. I'm then going to take the candied apple, sorry, the festive berries, candied apple, festive berries. Take a bit of that water off because I don't want too much water. I actually want the colour. And you've got a simple way of colouring. Now, the reason I did the second generation is I wanted to show you that you can still get as much depth in this one as you can this one, even if you only used the second generation, because you just add another layer of colour. And this is how we learn about layering. So it's had a little bit of time just to dry a little bit, and I've got very little water on there. I'm just picking up that neat colour, and I'm just using the neat colour. I'm going to use the neat colour then in the lumberjack plaid. See if I can actually get the names right this time. Going to use the lumberjack plaid. I've not cleaned my brush, and my brush is now, it's pretty dry, to be honest. It's not got a lot of water in, so I'm going to pick the tiniest amount of water up, just so I can blend it a little bit further. And then I'm not going to pick any more water up. I'm just going to go straight to the festive berries and pick up that neat colour. So just pick up the festive berries. And now, even though I used second generation, I've still got the depth in there with those colours. Just wonderful. It just works beautifully. So I'm going to come in and just add a little bit more to my other one now, just because I'm having far too much fun. So just pick up the seedless preserves, which I seem to have a problem with remembering the name. But that seedless preserves, doesn't it bring a wonderful bit of the dark colour? Just wonderful. Then I've got the lumberjack plaid. So we can just add a little bit of the lumberjack plaid, and then we can take some festive berries, and I've not added very much water at all. So I'm blending with very little of that water, and it just means that I've got lovely baubles with very little effort, not much effort at all. And if you find you've got a little bit of a line, just come in with a tiny bit more colour and just do a little bit more. There we go. So then we can go to our little baubles where we did add the water. So they've got more of that watery effect. So let's place our colour palette down. We've got the seedless preserves. We have the lumberjack plaid. And we have the festive berries that I've been calling the wrong name all the way through. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of water, and then I'm going to pick up the seedless preserves. And then I'm just going to add the seedless preserves just onto all of my baubles. I'm going to add the seedless preserves just to all of my baubles with very little water, because these will still be wet. So these will still have some moisture on there as well. So you just need to be aware that they will still have moisture in them. Sometimes I have to move my card around because I find it a little bit easier to see what I am doing. So the lesson here is that it doesn't matter how pale something is, which is what I'm trying to show, you can still get that depth of colour. So at the moment I've just used that seedless preserves. So I'm just picking up all the colour that I've got on there. And you can see that this one is quite dark compared to the others. Doesn't matter. And that's what I'm trying to show. So I've got a piece of kitchen roll on the side that I keep dabbing off onto because I don't want too much moisture. I'm then taking the lumberjack plaid. So we'll come in to the seedless preserves with the lumberjack plaid. And then we'll come into this one with that lumberjack plaid. And again into the others. So these were your second generation baubles. So we're coming into those second generation baubles. And you can see the second generation because they are paler than our other baubles. You can see I've hardly got any water on there, so I'm going to pick a little bit up. So I'll pick a little bit up and then I take the excess off. So if I've got too much, I take the excess off. Just so that it works quite nicely. Let's drag that out a little bit more. So then I'm going to rinse my brush a bit. Then I'm taking off all the moisture. So I don't really want a lot of moisture. And then I'm going to pick up the festive berries. And then with the festive berries, it's just my last colour with the festive berries. Just to bring in that last bit of colour. Just bringing in that last bit of colour with the festive berries. And it doesn't matter that I've taken that white area out because I can still come and put that in. But the lesson here is that don't think that if you've only started off with a pale colour that you can't add the same amount of depth, because you can. So we can come back again, and my water's tinted now, which doesn't matter. We can take our seedless preserves again, take off your excess moisture, pick up your seedless preserves, and if you've got one that you think, oh, it's not quite as dark, Tracy, you can come in with a little bit of that ink and just make that a little bit darker. No problem at all. Just make that a little bit darker. And you can just start the process over again. So you can go back to your lumberjack plaid and just build that colour up really nicely. Especially on the really pale ones. Then we'll take the festive berries and just blend in with your festive berries. Again, not too much water. But yes, I'm quite pleased with those. So let's sort of clean that up, just so that we're not working in a messy background. So let's clean our brush. We'll just clean our brush. As you can see, can you see how much pigment is in there? Brilliant, just brilliant. The amount of pigment in there. Look at that. Look how many times I've cleaned that brush. And it's still got pigment. And that's what you want, really. You want something that has a lot of pigment in there, because, you know, you want to be able to build your layers with rich pigments. I've got that much water on here now. Right. So what I want to do now is I need to have something. I don't need them grounding, but I don't need them floating. So I'm going to use the berries from TE55. So let's use TE55. and I'll faff with acetate. There we go. So I'll take these berries from TE55. Now I can use these sort of quite open berries here. It's got quite open branches. So we'll just take that little bauble off there. Let's move this out of the way. Move that out of the way. And I've not dried anything, so my pages have not curled or anything either. And I also want the berries to just have this lovely seedless preserves colour on there. So I'm taking the seedless preserves and I'm going to add just a little bit of festive berries as well. So just a little bit of festive berries, just as well. Not everywhere, but just a little bit. And I love that I can then aim and direct the berries, especially if you can see where you're going with your light, just wherever I wish. So I can direct those berries wherever. Lovely. And I don't really need to do much to those because they've already got that depth and a couple of layers of colour, so you hardly need to do anything. Same process again, we'll just use the seedless preserves. And don't forget, when you're creating your cards, you're not waffling to anybody, you're not describing the step-by-steps, so you'll realise how simple it all is. So let's just add some berries there. Okay, so we've got our little berries. That's it. I just think then, oh, we have a splash of water for some unknown reason, as you can see here, not that it matters, but you can see the berries are just beautiful straight away. You don't need much else. So let's just leave that on one side. And then we'll then bring in the berries for these. So we'll take we'll take the seedless preserves. Then we'll add a little bit of the festive berries. Listen, all these names, it's messing with my head. And then I'm going to take, I want a few more berries here because I've got the baubles just dotted here, there and everywhere. So I do want a few berries. So starting with that seedless preserves again. And you literally don't need to do anything other than tapping the two colours, and those berries really work for you. So let's have that one coming down here. Very easy to stamp with those oxides as well. Nothing difficult at all. Then we'll take the seedless preserves again. Then we'll take the festive berries and add a little bit of those. And just add that to here. Lovely. Can you see how you can have it coming off the edge as well? Which now I've seen that, I want a little bit more over here. So we'll just take those berries there and a little bit of the festive berries. And then we'll just add a few of the berries here as well. Lovely. I love it coming off the edge. Then I'm just going to give my stamp a little bit of a clean because they're quite strong colours, those are. So let's just give those a little bit of a clean. There we go. And I'm only using a wipe that's you've got the water in, but just so that you can see. Got those lovely, look at those berries, don't they look effective in their own right? Absolutely gorgeous, just love them. I just think they're gorgeous. So then, let me go grab I have to find the right colour now. So when you have to find the right colour, I'm going to grab a piece of pink frog card that's a scrap of card, and then I'm going to test colours. So this is Hawthorn Rose. Let's have a look at that. That's not a bad colour actually. And what colour's this? Lilac Blue. Nope. Let's try Strawberry with the Hawthorn Rose. Yes. So we'll take those two colours. Always test your colours first. So let's move these out of the way. Let's put the berries back just so that we can use that acrylic block again. Place that back. And on this TE55 is a lovely stamp just talking about berries. So there we go. And what I'm going to do is, let's move this out. Let's give that one a rest and we'll bring this one in. I'm going to take the Hawthorn Rose. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the strawberry. So take a little bit of that strawberry. And then I'm going to add some text. Just to give a little bit more detail. So I'm taking the Hawthorn Rose and then a little bit of the strawberry. I don't sort of cover the whole area with the strawberry, I just use little bits. And I'm going straight over that oxide. I'm well aware of that. So I need to make sure that's blotted or dried. Again, all over with the Hawthorn Rose and then a few taps with the strawberry. I'm just going to bring that down here, like so. And again, all over with the Hawthorn and then a few little touches with the strawberry. Just to bring in that text. I will lift this up so that you can see all over with the Hawthorn and a few touches with the strawberry. Let's bring that down here. Like so. Just lovely. And then a little bit at the top as well. All over with the Hawthorn Rose and then a few taps with the strawberry. So we'll just... There we go. So this is what we have at the moment. And if I just tilt, let me see if I can get it to work. You can see on here, there. Can you see it's sort of shiny? That's because the ink is wet. So we'll need to blot that afterwards. But we'll do that shortly. So you've got a nice simple card. So again, we're going to add this text all over with the Hawthorn Rose and then a few taps with the strawberry. I'm just going to add a little bit of text here. Don't know who this is now. I hope somebody's going to answer the door. Bear with me.
Are you recording?
Yeah. Who was that, the door? Oh, sorry. No, I'm recording. Sorry about that, everyone. My hubby decided that he might stop the internet. And I'm like, no, I'm recording. So Hawthorn and then strawberry. This is what it's like in my house. Seriously, you can't make it up. You try and be professional, but you may as well give up, really. So then we'll try Hawthorn. My house is on a different planet. Or the humans who habitat this house are on a different planet. So let's just grab, there we go. So we've got some lovely colour on there. And I'll just give that a clean with them being quite dark, you know, colours. So let's move these out of the way. Let's bring this in. And let's give those a blot. Oh, I know it's amazing shock, but I've actually got some copier paper on my desk. So I'm just going to give these a little blot. Because then we don't want anything that's just sitting on the surface. And to be honest, it's very little indeed. So I'm going to grab, I don't know whether I've got a colour on here. What colour are you? Crimson Lake might work. What colour is this? Crimson. Let's use Crimson Lake, which is PC925. And I can just add my baubles just so that they're not sort of floating in midair. They look more professional because they're dangling from something. So let's just... So you're just adding a couple of lines in just so that it looks a little bit more professional. Again, nothing too complicated at all. So it's in, you know, sort of nice and delicate there. You could also add a little bit of twinkle if you wanted to. You could also, if you want, you could add more depth. So you could take your baubles and you could add a little bit of black cherry if you wished. I'm quite happy with this, so I don't feel like I need anything more. But if you wanted to add a little bit more depth, you could use black cherry PC1078. But I'm quite happy with what I've got, because I'm going to come in now frantically looking for that little pencil. You know, my favourite little pencil. You know what it is. Could be under here. Well, knowing my desk, it could be under anywhere. Oh, where's my little Inktense pencil? I should really hunt this out before I even start, really. Before I even do anything. Because it's always the little pencil that I want. And of course, it's nowhere in sight. And have I got another one? Please tell me I've got another one. Oh, I have as well, look. Chinese ink 2030. Don't know, I can't lose my little pencil. I like my little pencil. So I can then come in with my Chinese ink and just add a little bit of shading around here. Now, because I've got that Distress Oxide on there, some of that will react to the moisture that I add to blend out the Inktense pencil. But that's quite good because it's sort of, it makes it a mix of the colours then. Let me move this. Do you know, the minute I stop recording, I'll tell you now, I'll find that pencil, that little pencil. So we'll just take a little bit of water. And I've always got this kitchen roll here, just in case I've got a little bit too much water. Now, the text I have stamped with a VersaFine Clair, which is a permanent ink. So that permanent ink is not going to move. But I can just add a little bit of shading here. And because I'm touching the black and a little bit of the purple, it will blend those colours out just to give me a little bit of a shadow. Again, just makes that a little bit more professional. Still a simple card, but then just a few little touches just make it a little bit more professional. So we've got that lovely shading on there as well, just so that you can see that. And then we'll do exactly the same with the little ones, just around the base a little bit, just to give that a little bit more dimension, just with a little bit of shading on there. just to blend that out, just to make it a little bit more 3D. I'm just adding a little bit of shading just to those. I'll just hold those up. Now you could use the mica flakes we've got and everything to add a little bit of that as well if you wished. Can you see? I'll just drop it on the floor. Can you see then you've got two simple cards that could be Christmas cards, nothing too complicated at all. So nice and simple and completely flat if you want them completely flat. So then we can go to stamp sets TE18 and TE22, and we've got lots of lovely wording on there. So you've got celebrate the season, Christmas wishes, winter wishes, peace, believe, joy, 25. So lovely sentiments on there. So let's grab celebrate the season from TE18. There we go. And then you just need to decide where you are stamping your sentiments. I'm going to use a black ink. And then you just need to have a think where you want to place your wording. So just have a play around. I quite like it there. Play around with your compositions and see what, what makes you happy. So you've got celebrate the season. Now, yes, I'm aware that it's very subtle. So you can keep it like that, or you see, I quite like the subtlety of it, but if you want it to stand out a little bit more, this is why you have to play a little bit. So let's take that. And it's important for me to show you both ways, because then you can understand why I do certain things. And if I showed the whole process of the whys and wherefores and the reasons I don't and I do, then that makes more sense to you. Let's cut that out. I don't want a sentiment that's too thick and bulky. So now you can see there, it's beautiful, but a little bit lost. But it gives me an idea, about where the sentiment is going. But watch when you add the white, just pops, and you can see why sometimes, even when I've got a flat card, I think, oh, I'll just add the sentiment, because for me, I didn't want to add the sentiment down here because it seems a little bit disjointed. So let's just add this over here, like so. So we'll just let that just adhere. And then I'm going to put celebrate the season on here. And again, now you know why I'm going to cut it out, just so that it pops against that background. You could also cut the sentiment up so that each word was separate if you wished. Let's bring this in. So you could quite easily do that as well. I obviously can't put stamps back very well either. Where's the bauble? Oh. It's like I talk to myself. So we'll just cut that out. And it doesn't matter how hard I try, I still work in an inch of space. It's no longer 5 inches of space. In my case, it's an inch. And just cutting down the sentiment. There we go. Excuse my hand across there. Then I'm going to add this here. So let's adhere this. And if you add a little bit too much adhesive, just dab it on another piece of card just to take the excess off there. So we'll just press that down just so that that adheres. And now each of those pops quite nicely. Now if you wanted to make these into a card, you could create your own mat and layer, 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and use one of these colours in the background, and it would look beautiful then on your card. But now if I put these in my snippet album, I've then got something to refer to. So let's just move these out of the way, and then I'm going to use my little Winsor & Newton ink, white ink, and let's add that. Sandra told me about this, so I will use it because it does seem rather good. That's a bit of a too fine a brush. Oh, we don't want that one. It does take me a long time to decide what I want to use. So I'm going to pick a brush and I'm just going to put a little bit of ink just on here. There we go. Because me and bottles don't mix. So I'm moving the bottle out of the way just because I don't mix. I am terrible. Now this is quite fluid ink anyway. So I'm going to pick this up. I'm just going to dab that off a little bit. And then I'm going to add a few little touches of that white. Now I'm using a fan brush because it's a little bit finer. Just to add those white touches. Now keep it away from your sentiment because you don't want your sentiment affected so that you can't read it. So then we can just clean that up. I can clean them brushes afterwards. So let's put them on the kitchen roll, and we'll just bring in our snippet journal. I do apologise, but I've got that many journals that I'm getting confused which one's which. So let's bring this in. Oh, I just love these birds, you know, love them. And then we'll just add these to here. Now you've got simple, lovely, simple Christmas card ideas there. And what I'm going to do, I'll adhere these in a second, but this one does lend itself. I don't know what's on that one. But this one does lend itself to add a little bird, don't you think? I do. So then you look frantically for TE44 and you get another stamp set out. So we'll get the little bird out of TE44. It just lends itself to a little bird, this does. Just going to take my little bird. Not, you know, not that I'm slightly obsessed by these birds at all. I'm just going to add the little bird just down here. Because the bird works. Because the sentiment didn't, but the bird gives a sense of depth and distance. So let's just place that bird back. You could have also used the bells from TE44 as well, if you want to change it up a little bit. So let's just ground our little bird. Try not to pick the brush up, Tracy, that's got all the white paint on, because that would not work. So just blend that out. There we go. So that really, for me, lends itself to that bird. So let's add. And what I would say with your snippets is if you want to experiment, do it on your snippets and then you can look back and see what you like, what it is that you like. I need to bring this in a bit so that I can fit the numbers on. There we go. Sure I do. Yes, I don't think I did that one, but you should have brought the numbers it in a bit, Tracy. Never mind. So that's snippet 100 and this is snippet 99. So let's take this one. And we haven't heated anything, so we've got no bend in that card, so it works rather well. Just it takes me longer to place the snippets sometimes than it does to actually make them. I'm leaving that gap so I can put numbers on there, just so that you know that. Now, if you wanted to add something more, you know, because you were sending a Christmas card out to somebody extra special, I then won't be able to find them, will I? Don't think I can. Let me see if I can go and get an... Oh, there they are. Bear with me. I can't get the lid open, so just give me 2 seconds. And guess what's just turned up? My little Inktense pencil, look. That's been with me for so long now. I can't let it go. But if you wanted to, you could add a few little touches of your glitter and mica flakes. So we could add, and just naturally just add them on there anyway with no adhesive. So we could just sort of add little bits of adhesive. Now don't add too much so it's just massive lumps of... You want it to look a little bit more tasteful, or I would say you want it to look a little bit more tasteful. Let's just move that out of the way in a minute, unless I'll end up with them sticking to my adhesive as well. Do you like how I'm thinking about these things? So let's just take a little... See, in these you've got glitter and mica, so you can add a little bit of your glitter and your mica just to your card. Now just one pot of this is going to last you ages, but it does make them a little bit more special. It makes everything a little bit more special. Let's just add a couple of mica bits there. There we go. And what I personally would do, I would recommend that you just leave that sitting there. Obviously I'm not going to because I can't show you then, but I would recommend that you leave those bits sitting there so that they've got time to adhere on the little bit of adhesive you've added, because it just gives it a little bit more time. I'm going to try and lift this up now. Let me just grab a fine brush. Look at the size of this brush, watch. Biggest brush ever. Just so I can show you where I've added it and not where I haven't added it. There we go. So then, let me see if I can show you. Let me see if I can get the shimmy. And there's some, there you go. And there's some mica flakes on there as well. But if you want to make it, even in your snippet journal, just a few of those little mica flakes. There you go, this shimmer as well. It really does make it a little bit more extra special. And you can see the I can really see the glitter now. You probably can't. There. You can see the glitter. And I've still got some I can put back. So there are ways that you can make a card but change it up to make it extra special. So you could make a few just plain and then make a few with your mica flakes on there, on your little bit of shimmer. It would be lovely. And that is your 2 next snippets. So we've done 95, 96, 97, 98. These are 99 and 100. So I hope you've enjoyed those and I hope you'll give those a go. Before I disappear, you just need to ask yourself, don't forget I can do these things because I'm showing you. You want to check if you want to add any shading under your sentiment. So you've got that decision to make whether you want to add that shading or not. So just a little bit of a touch of shading, and I already know that yes, I want to add that little bit of shading. So just adding a little bit of shading, and because I'm using that round brush, I hardly have to touch the surface. And now we are completely finished. So I hope you've enjoyed those and I hope you'll give those a go. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.